U.S. steps in as Venezuela's dispute with Guyana intensifies amid oil and drug conflicts. Georgetown, Guyana, September 14, 2025. Tensions between Venezuela and Guyana have escalated sharply over the oil-rich Essequibo region, with the United States stepping in to counter what it calls aggressive moves by Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro's regime. The long-standing territorial dispute, fueled by massive offshore oil discoveries and accusations of Venezuela's involvement in the regional drug trade, has raised fears of a broader conflict in the Caribbean, prompting a robust U.S. military and diplomatic response. A century-old dispute reignited by oil. The conflict centers on the Essequibo region, a resource-rich territory comprising roughly two-thirds of Guyana's landmass. Venezuela has claimed sovereignty over the area since the 19th century, dismissing an 1899 arbitration ruling that awarded it to then British Guyana. The discovery of over 10 billion barrels of oil reserves off Guyana's coast by ExxonMobil since 2015 has reignited the dispute, transforming Guyana into a potential global energy powerhouse. With production capacity now exceeding 900,000 barrels per day, Guyana is projected to surpass Venezuela as the world's largest per capita crude producer by the end of 2025. Venezuela's economic crisis and mismanagement of its own oil industry have intensified Maduro's focus on Essequibo resources. In December 2023, a controversial Venezuelan referendum approved the annexation of Essequibo, escalating tensions. Maduro has since ordered state-owned companies to explore oil and minerals in the region and proposed legislation to declare it a Venezuelan province, defying a binding International Court of Justice (ICJ) order to maintain the status quo. Military escalations and regional tensions. The situation took a dangerous turn in May 2025 when Guyanese soldiers faced 3 attacks in 24 hours by unidentified armed men in civilian clothing from the Venezuelan side of the Cuyuni River. No casualties were reported, but Guyana has since increased patrols in the region. Venezuela's plans to hold elections in Essequibo on May 25, 2025, further defied international rulings, prompting condemnation from Guyana and the international community. The U.S. has responded with a significant military buildup in the Caribbean. In August 2025, the Pentagon deployed a strike force including the USS Lake Erie, a guided missile cruiser, along with warships, submarines, and over 4,500 troops to the region, officially described as an anti-drug trafficking operation. However, posts on X and regional analysts suggest this is also a show of force to deter Venezuelan aggression against Guyana. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, during a March 2025 visit to Guyana, warned of consequences for any Venezuelan attack on Guyana or ExxonMobil's operations, signaling strong U.S. support for its ally. Rubio reiterated this stance in August, accusing Venezuela's government of operating as a criminal enterprise, specifically targeting the Cartel de los Soles, allegedly led by Maduro, for its role in drug trafficking. The U.S. Treasury designated the cartel a global terrorist organization in July 2025, linking it to groups like Tren de Aragua and the Sinaloa cartel. Drug trafficking and geopolitical stakes. The U.S. has accused Venezuela of fueling the regional drug trade, with Rubio labeling Maduro's regime a narco-terrorist organization threatening American interests, including oil operations in Guyana. A recent U.S. strike on a Venezuelan boat, described as a drug trafficking vessel, killed 11 people, raising questions about the extent of U.S. military engagement in the region. Guyana, meanwhile, is navigating its newfound oil wealth amid the dispute. The country held elections on September 1, 2025, with President Irfan Ali seeking a second term to manage the oil boom and counter Venezuelan threats. The opposition has criticized Ali's government for relying heavily on U.S. support, while Maduro has accused Guyana of being a puppet of ExxonMobil and the U.S. military. Diplomatic efforts and economic risks. Diplomatic efforts to de-escalate the crisis have been limited. The Caribbean community has called for mediation, urging dialogue facilitated by neutral parties like St. Vincent and the Grenadines. However, Venezuela's defiance of ICJ rulings and its military posturing have complicated negotiations. A meeting between Maduro and Ali in December 2023 yielded no significant progress. The economic stakes are high. A disruption in Guyana's oil production could ripple through global energy markets, while continued instability may deter investors and strain both nations' economies. Venezuela's actions, including intercepting ExxonMobil vessels in disputed waters as recently as 2018, underscore the risk of further escalation. International response and path forward. The United Nations and regional leaders have expressed concern over the crisis. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres called for de-escalation on September 7, 2025, following Venezuela's appeal for UN intervention against U.S. actions. The U.S. maintains its support for Guyana's sovereignty, with the State Department emphasizing peaceful resolution while deploying forces to signal readiness. Analysts suggest that addressing the root causes, territorial claims, resource competition, and Venezuela's internal crises requires sustained diplomatic pressure and regional cooperation. CARICOM could play a larger role in mediating, but the U.S.'s military presence risks being seen as provocative, potentially complicating efforts for a peaceful resolution. As the dispute unfolds, the Caribbean remains a flashpoint where oil, drugs, and geopolitics converge. With the U.S. firmly backing Guyana against Venezuela's aggressive claims, the international community watches closely, wary of a conflict that could destabilize the region and beyond.